our tier 1, and these are the pieces of the tier that you guys will be engaged in, is the school-wide expectations. So you've seen like Salinas High, they had safe, honorable, sensible. So you'll see 3 to 5 school expectations, whatever your school might be. I know some of them have safe, responsible, respectful. Some of them have the 3 R's, you're ready to learn, and respectful, responsible. So they'll be a little bit different at each site, but you'll have those school-wide expectations. And then you'll also have the lesson plans, so where you're explicitly teaching students what you want to see. So everything, like we said, already falls under that positive language. So what does it mean to be safe? What does it mean to be responsible? What does it mean to be respectful? Those are your matrices, and that's how the lesson plans will be developed. And those lesson plans are developed based in data. So like we talked about, if we see a lot of students with disrespectful language, or we see a lot of students that might be using drugs on campus, we create lessons to support those areas and to be proactive. And the next item is that we reinforce the behaviors that we want to see. So we provide acknowledgement systems where we go around and we reinforce that was really respectful, I like the way you did whatever, or that was really responsible, the way you turned in your homework. And that's a huge part of the system, the acknowledgement system. And then the last item is the office discipline referral. So 3 years ago, we changed and we revamped our office discipline referral. District-wide, we all use the same form, and we'll pass it out and look at it. And it's a little bit confusing at first. It's already been passed out, but we have a video to kind of help support that too. So these are one of the examples of the behavioral expectation grid. So basically, this is a place where I think their rules were achievement, respect, responsibility. And what does it look like in the classroom? What does it look like in the hallway? What does it look like in the cafeteria, outside, in the locker room? So you can get the idea of what is the expectation and what it might look like in the different locations of the school. And this is one of our schools that put together a pamphlet to pass out to parents. What does it mean to be safe, honorable, sensible at school events versus in the restrooms? So those are the expectations that you'll be seeing as you go around campus, the expectations and then the grids to see what it might look like. So here is one of the schools, and we'll see another video. This is the lesson that they put together for the students, and you as a teacher would show the lesson and then have some type of discussion with your students afterwards.
Hey Cowboys, I'm here to talk to you about safe, honorable, and sensible language. When we surveyed teachers last year to find out what concerns they had for students, language was the second most prevalent concern. And so here's your lesson for this week. Before we talk about language, let's talk about our school. Our school is a very diverse place. We have students of different races, different ethnicities, different religion or no religion, different genders, different sexual orientations, and different socioeconomic statuses. The list goes on. So the question becomes, how do we use language on campus to create a safe environment that honors everyone's diverse backgrounds and allows for us to interact with each other in a sensible and respectful way? So that's why we're going to talk specifically about language that is safe, language that is honorable, and how to use language in a sensible way.
One of the inspirations for this lesson is the following image. As you go through this presentation, think about this quote and how it relates to what we're discussing about language and being SHS.
One of the ways you can be SHS is by using safe language. Safe language is non-threatening and non-violent. It's resolving conflicts by not escalating, agreeing to disagree when you can, and when you can't, it's seeking out a mediator if you need help. Safe language is also non-harassing language.
From our safety presentations, we know that harassment is inappropriate or sexual jokes, suggestive comments, sexual propositions or threats, and insults.
The next type of language I'd like to talk about is honorable language. Honorable language is respectful language. It's using things like please and thank you, and it's also using the names people have asked for you to call them, and using honorifics for adults like Mr., Miss, Signor, Signora, Madame, Monsieur, those kinds of things. But honorable language is more than just that. Honorable language is also refraining from using language that is offensive or demeaning to entire groups of people. Some of the kinds of slang language that you might hear in music, televisions, and TV shows that don't create a welcoming learning environment for all students. Examples of language that is not honorable include the N-word, the R-word, the B-word, and phrases like, "that's so gay," and "don't be a..." Those types of words and phrases demean entire groups of people based on their race, their sexual orientation, their gender, or their intellectual abilities. And that type of language on campus can create a hostile environment for people who feel attacked by that kind of language. Some people might use those slang terms and phrases with their friends or even at home. And I don't want to tell you that you can't ever say some of those words, even though I think that you probably shouldn't. But just like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, our campus is incredibly diverse, with different groups of people who hail from all over the world and who have different beliefs and different systems and different values. And so our job on campus is to create a space where everyone feels welcome. And that means watching the language that we use so that way we are creating an environment that is safe, honorable, and sensible for all. Which brings me to the sensible use of language. Being sensible with your language is all about using the right language in the right environment at the right time. And this is called code switching. Code switching is when you change or alter the way that you speak based on the environment and your audience. Now, most students are already pretty good at code switching. You talk to your friends in one way, you talk to your family in a different way. You might talk one way in the classroom and a different way when you're out at the movies. So what we are asking Cowboys is you to be more aware of your environment and you to engage in code switching very purposefully. Regardless if we are in a classroom, in a hallway in between classes, at lunch, hanging out before practice, in a club meeting, you are with a group of very diverse students. The language that you use has the power to make a positive and welcoming environment for all students, or it has the power to demean and degrade groups of students and make them feel unwelcome and unsafe. So here's what I want you to remember from this video, Cowboys. 1. Be SHS in your language and the way that you conduct yourself on campus in order to help create a positive learning environment for everybody who goes to Salinas High School. And 2, remember the word code switching because it'll come up a lot in your life and being really proficient at code switching will really help you later on. As an aside, the language that we've talked about in this video, the R word, the N word, the B word, and those other phrases, those kinds of phrases, when you use them in the work environment, can actually get you in trouble. Most professional environments are not going to want you to use that kind of slang language. So you can think of your time at Salinas High School as training for the workforce. You're not going to be able to say them on your job, and if you do, you very well could get written up. So don't say them on campus. Also, some of those words are really awful, and you should probably try and eliminate them from your vocabulary, just in general. That's all for this week's Cowboy Way video. Stay tuned next week for a video on student fashion. If you're interested in being a part of the Cowboy Way team and helping to design the lessons and produce the videos, come see me, Mrs. Rogers, in room 218. We're always on the lookout for student input on how to shape the Cowboy Way so that it works best for the students on campus. See you later, Cowboy.
So you got an idea of, and one thing I wanted to say also is we see at our sites, most of our sites, that the #1 problem behavior district-wide is defiance and disrespect. So a lot of it has to do with the language students use. So these types of lessons have been very proactive and very useful to school sites. The next big piece that we've talked about is acknowledgement systems. So we're always tying our acknowledgement systems to our school-wide expectations. So we've talked about a lot about respect, responsible, as being major common school-wide expectations. So make sure when you give an acknowledgement, you let them know why they're getting that. Thank you for being respectful. Thank you for being responsible or motivated, whatever your school-wide expectations are, if you can connect those things. And oftentimes the school will have like weekly or monthly drawings. Students can win, like Rotary snack food from the snack bar, athletic event tickets, front of the line, lunch line passes at our middle schools. They really like those. And then any type of school swag, so they have sweatshirts, t-shirts, water bottles, and all those types of things. I think it's very important that we create that culture where we're all acknowledging each other, teachers, students, staff, from the top down. I think it's all important, and we all feel valued, which actually takes me to the next slide. It's this whole idea of acknowledging students or having good interactions it works. They find the research says you'll hear 4-to-1 or 5-to-1, but it's a good idea to have at least 4 or 5 positive interactions for every behavioral correction or negative interaction you have with a student. So it's inevitable that you're going to have to correct students, but the ones that are corrected a lot, they need a lot more positive interactions between the adults and the students. So we find this works not only for students, but the research shows that business teams, the highest performing business teams, they said 5.6 positive interactions to every correction. And then also married couples also find that 5-to-1, so when they have verbal or speech acts, interactions, 5-to-1, and then also for more observed, so nonverbal interactions is 4-to-1. So we always want to make sure we're having way more positive things going on with our students, and so that when we do correct them, it doesn't break down that relationship that we have. So thank you for sharing that, because that all goes along with that. Just as far as PBIS, since 2000, this chart graphs all the way up to 2015, you'll see that in the United States, you have more and more schools adopting this framework. So we've talked a lot about behavior. So I want you to understand this when you go back to your sites, because you'll hear this terminology of minors and then majors. So those two types of behavior problems. So minors are when teachers have, within the classroom, minor incidences are where teachers have the authority to manage the behavior. And every school site has a different system. I'll show you an example of one of what's a minor and what's a major. I'm sure if you have a middle schooler, high schooler, an alternative school, it's all a little bit different on how we're going to address behavior. So there's things that teachers are given the authority to deal with. And typically, like after 3 or 4 minor incidences, then it becomes a major or an office managed discipline. So, and major incidences are those that interfere with the ongoing education of others. They threaten the safety of others, or they're really severe and they need a more intervention. So, like I said, they're going to look a little bit different at every site, but the idea is that within the classroom that there's some intervention happening with the teacher and their minor way to deal with minor incidences, and then there's office managed behaviors. So this is an example, I think this was Mount Toro's example of they called it class managed versus office managed. So there's a whole flow chart, what's minor, what's a major. These systems were created by the school sites. So they oftentimes put something together, and then they would come back together and hash it out with their teachers, and everyone would come upon agreements, and then they move forward with these types of things. So like teacher managed are tardiness, poor work habits, not completing assignments, a willful defiance of school authority. So teachers manage these things within the classroom. And some examples of office managed were chronic behaviors, which were like happening 2 to 4 times, fighting, battery, assault, those types of things were more office managed. So every school site, like I said, they should give you some type of a flow chart of behaviors and how to go about dealing with problem behavior. And so this site also has another chart where they talk about the flow, what happens if it's the first time, send them to a counselor. If it's repeated, then we might send them to Cambio, which is an alternative site for students, or this is when it's going to go to suspension. So just so teachers and everyone's on the same page and we're treating all students in an equitable manner. So when we do have to correct a behavior, some things that you might want to tell a student or ask them is, what are the rules? What are the school-wide rules? For this particular school, it was be more, so motivated, organized, respectful, engaged. So was your behavior motivated? Was it engaged? Was it respectful? And then what do you need to do? So just kind of redirecting them. So those are some ways you might want to correct behavior. And then also, how do you acknowledge proper behavior? So making sure you say thank you for being motivated, thank you for being respectful, and so on. So making sure we're acknowledging students with the acknowledgement cards, whatever system your school has, and then also verbally letting them know why you're giving that to them. Okay, so I just wanted to be able to see one. So you'll see that the major components of these office discipline referrals are who engaged in the behavior, when did the behavior happen, where did the behavior happen, what was the problem behavior, and then why. So the number 5, the why, was the part that was more we had to do a little bit of training and figuring out the why part. So we created a video to kind of help support that. But basically, the why is the possible motivation. So why do you think this behavior is happening? So is it happening, are they cussing you out because the math test is too difficult and they're trying to escape that? Or are they doing it to gain attention from their peers? Or are they really mad at you and trying to get your attention? So the why has to do with, are they trying to, like I said, get attention, or avoid your attention, obtain something, avoid a task, avoid peers, avoid a certain adult, or do you just not know? And this is helpful. So for students who habitually engage in problem behavior, this helps our teams decide how to support the students. So if at all possible, it's important that you fill that piece out. So I want to go ahead and show you the video that'll kind of do a little bit better job of describing what's going on.
Hello, fellow staff members. We hope you enjoyed this brief tutorial on the new referral forms, also known as ODRs. By now, I'm sure you have all seen the new referral forms, which have been implemented district-wide this year. While some of the information is the same, there are a few key differences. The first is that these forms are being input into a data analysis program that, once fully implemented, will allow sites to see and analyze their discipline data. This will not only allow PBIS teams to develop targeted and specific lessons, it will also allow admin and security to make strategic decisions about supervision, discipline, and campus safety. This means that your on-site PBIS and admin teams need your help in order to get the data we need. Please make sure you are filling out your form completely, from top to bottom. In this sample form, Anakin Skywalker, who is a 12th grader here at Salinas High, got into trouble on November 6, 2015 at about 9 o'clock in the morning. The time and date are very important so that way we can look at trends in discipline. Another important piece is the location where the incident occurred. While these locations are not site-specific, it's important for each site to determine exactly what they mean so that way PBIS and admin teams can take a look and see where we are having problems on campus. In our sample here, young Skywalker was having problems in the classroom. His specific behavioral issue was that he was verbally harassing young Jabba the Hutt. The next major difference in this referral form is minor versus major behaviors. Since each site is different, each site will utilize this slightly differently. It's important that sites follow the behavioral flow chart and have school-wide conversations about these two categories and what they mean for each school. What is the same across the entire district is that only one behavior can be entered into the data collection system.
So if a student exhibits multiple behavioral problems, please at least circle the one problem that you believe needs to be recorded for data purposes. You can check off as many as you want as long as one is circled to indicate which one gets entered. In our Anakin Skywalker example, Anakin was not only a classroom disruption, but he was also bullying and was associated with a gang, the Jedis. Since gang affiliation display is the most serious, that is the one that will be circled and recorded. The next two areas on this form are very similar to the old referral form. Was anyone else involved, and what other interventions did staff take prior to this referral? Please fill them out as completely as possible so that way admin can get a better idea of what has been going on and what next steps need to be taken. The last section in the new referral form is a place for possible motivation. Never before have we asked staff to attempt to identify why students are engaging in problem behaviors. This is yet another piece to help us identify trends in behaviors. It will help your PBIS team create much more targeted lessons, and it also helps administration tailor discipline to fit the needs of a student. A student who is disrupting class because they want to avoid taking a test is different than a student who is disrupting class because they want the attention from their peers. And all of this not only helps admin teams, but also helps the PBIS team get a comprehensive picture of what is happening on campus so they can try and find ways to address the issues. Remember, we need the who, what, when, where, and why so we can make more effective decisions. Forms need to be filled out completely or they may be kicked back to you. As for minor versus major behavioral problems, please utilize the flowcharts, have site conversations about behavioral issues, and remember that only one behavior problem can be recorded into our data collection system. Thanks so much. If you have any questions or comments, please contact your PBIS team on site.